Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Well, another Premier League season has drew to a close and is set to go down in the history books. Yesterday was the final day of the 2020-2021 season, and it was a historic season to say the least, and albeit a very unique season as well. And I thought in this video I'd go through a bit of a review of the season that has just been, going through all the 20 positions in England's top flight division, going through the 20 teams to finish in those 20 positions, giving a brief overview of the season that has just been for each and every team in the Premier League. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's go back to reviewing the 2020-2021 season. We, of course, are going to begin with the Premier League champions, the side to sit top of the table, and that, of course, is Manchester City, who could be on the verge of an incredible, historic-making season in the club's short-term history. Sorry, did I say short? Sorry. I didn't mean short. I mean long-term history. Of course I mean long-term history. I just sometimes forget that this was actually a football club long before the oil money was pumped into this club. My apologies. Joking aside, that not only have Pep Guardiola's side won the Carabao Cup this season, along with the Premier League, which of course saw City take back their English football crown and produce some of the most passionate, exciting and electric scenes outside of the Etihad by fans, the kind you're seeing on your screen right now that you've ever seen. But they could also be about to triumph in the Champions League when they take on Chelsea in the final this coming Saturday. Just try to contain your excitement on this one, guys. If you actually do win it, try to calm down a little bit. That's all I'm saying. For every winner, though, of course, there are 19 losers. And of them 19 losers, there are 3 real big-time losers that, of course, get relegated from the Premier League to go down to the Championship for the following campaign. This season, Sheffield United found themselves rock bottom of the Premier League for seemingly the entirety of the season. And the writing had seemingly been on the wall for a very long time. Their fate was eventually sealed a few months ago, being confirmed as the first team in the Premier League to be relegated and going down to the Championship for next season. A complete contrast to their 9th place finish in their previous campaign, and a further example of what second season syndrome is all about. Joining them next season in the Championship is the classic Premier League to Championship and back again yo-yoers that are West Bromwich Albion, who began the season with Slaven Bilic and ended it with one Sam Allardyce. Not all superheroes wear capes, and in Big Sam's case, I imagine that if he were to wear a cape, he'd turn that cape into more of a bib. Regardless, he's seen as a bit of a notorious superhero, though. He is actually seen as a bit of a notorious superhero, usually to clubs who are in need of saving from relegation and in need of some sort of stability. But this task proved to be too much for even Big Sam to handle, and as it happened, a late Alisson Becker winner at Anfield for Liverpool against Albion has seemingly finished him off at the Baggies as the club prepare for life back in the Championship, but without Big Sam there. And the third team to be relegated this season was, of course, Fulham, as Scott Parker's side will be back in the Championship for next season, following an up and down season in the Premier League, which ultimately cost them to be going down as to being relegated, as ultimately it proved to be not enough goals were this side's downfall. But hey, at least the rooftop swimming pool on top of Craven Cottage will look very good down in the Championship for the next campaign, right? Next, we're going to look at who filled the European football spots. We're beginning with second place Manchester United, the runners-up to Manchester City. Although finishing second, their title challenge lasted all about a week before Manchester City pulled away, leaving daylight between them and their fierce rivals. Bruno Fernandes spearheaded the charge for second place with 18 goals and 11 assists in 37 league appearances for United. And with the Europa League final coming up on Wednesday, there's still a very good chance that United could end up with a piece of silverware this season, albeit even if it is the BTEC Champions League. In third place saw last season's Premier League champions Liverpool take that spot back into the Champions League, despite it not looking the most likely of places for the Reds to finish throughout most of the campaign. Last season's Premier League champions found it difficult this season, mainly down to a number of key injuries that impacted the team hard across the middle of the campaign, in particular, with the centre-back area in particular being targeted the most. The Reds lost both Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk very early on in the season and had to play over 20 different centre-back combinations throughout the entirety of the campaign at the heart of the defence across the campaign, with their 6th, 7th, even 8th, probably even 9th choice centre-back options having to cover those positions, and that included having to make some makeshift centre-backs in the likes of both Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, who are obviously naturally midfielders. But regardless, the Reds still managed to make it back into the Champions League for next season, despite the odds, making it, if you were to put a positive spin on it, a very good season by finishing third. And ultimately, praise must go to Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp in particular for making that happen. And taking the final Champions League spot by finishing fourth are Chelsea. It began with Frank Lampard, it has ended with Thomas Tuchel, and that is following a massive spending spree pre-season that totaled up to around about, give or take, £230 million spent on several different senior players, in which elevated Chelsea in the eyes of many to now being title contenders in early season predictions. Obviously, across the season, ambitions shifted a little bit, going from title contenders to being top 4 contenders, and as we now know, Chelsea only just managed to scrape through to the top 4 by the skin of their teeth, losing on the final day of the season to Aston Villa, but being grateful and fortuitous that of all teams, rivals Tottenham helped them out a great deal in getting into the top 4, as Spurs beat Leicester, who were their closest rivals to them top 4 spots, on the final day. So of all teams, it was Spurs to help Chelsea out here. Chelsea could still finish this season with incredible glory if they triumph in the Champions League, but they have to beat Pep Guardiola's Manchester City in order to achieve that. In 5th and in the Europa League places, we see Leicester City. A sense of deja vu for the Foxes, as they once again had Champions League seemingly within their grasp for a large portion of the season, but they couldn't get across the finish line yet again. They held top 4 for a large part of the season, but fell away toward the end of the campaign. But still a rather successful campaign in terms of silverware. The Foxes claimed their first ever FA Cup trophy against Chelsea a couple of weeks ago. So, not a bad season upon reflection, but Champions League football would have been the icing on the cake for Brendan Rodgers' side. In 6th and officially qualifying for the Europa League as well for next season is West Ham. Yes, West Ham. Before a ball was even kicked this season, many people have probably predicted West Ham to be in some sort of relegation battle this season, or even to be relegated completely. However, that clearly wasn't the case. David Moyes' side have been the surprise package this season for all the right reasons, putting together a fantastic season with a great counter-attacking side, and have earned the right to play in Europe for the next campaign. Remember, this was a season that saw the resurrected form of one Jesse Lingard following his loan move in January to the Hammers from his parent club Manchester United, a move that saw him help West Ham achieve the Europa League football for next season and get him back within the conversation for the England national team. Some may say this is a David Moyes masterclass, a stroke of genius from the former Manchester United manager. In 7th place, we see Tottenham, a season in which Daniel Levy decided to put all of his eggs that he's accumulated in the European Super League basket. Remember when that was a massive controversy? Still kind of is in a way. It was completely bizarre that Spurs were even invited into a thing called a European Super League in the first place. But a day after its announcement, Spurs decided to sack manager Jose Mourinho days before a Carabao Cup final and appoint an inexperienced manager in the form of Ryan Mason to see out the remainder of the campaign, only for the Super League plans to then implode and leave both Levy and the club very much embarrassed with egg all over their potato-like faces. Spurs went from title contenders to challenging for the top 4 to then challenging to even make it within the top 6 very quickly as the season wore on. And to make matters worse, top goal scorer Harry Kane looks set to leave the club in the coming weeks or maybe even months. So it could be seen as rough times ahead for Spurs as their trophyless drought continues into another season. But hey, cheer up Spurs fans! You're in the Europa Conference League. What the hell is the Europa Conference League? That's still something, right? Elsewhere in the table, reading upwards from 17th to 8th place, we have first 17th place Burnley, as once again Sean Dyche continues to produce results in England's top tier division despite having to work with what by Premier League standards is considered to be a shoestring budget. Brighton are up next in 16th place. The Seagulls played some great football at times this season but didn't really have the goals returned to match their style of play. One can only imagine how high this team would have been had they have managed to acquire a consistent and prolific goal scorer up front. Southampton finished in 15th. The Saints had a good start to the campaign, but as the season wore on, they kind of fell away a little bit. The Saints were hit with a number of big and key injuries that certainly didn't help the Saints' causes, and I'm sure Saints fans won't thank me for reminding them that the poor patch of form, along with the bad luck that they had experienced, particularly after the New Year period, was highlighted much further and neatly wrapped up by a 9-0 thrashing by Manchester United in February. 14th went to Crystal Palace, a side who, for me at least, completely slipped under the radar towards the end of the season. It seemed like Palace lost consistently for a number of weeks, which is why I was quite surprised to see them sitting fairly comfortably just below mid-table. Palace will enter another season in the Premier League, but will be doing so without their manager Roy Hodgson, who stepped down as manager of the club. And from one club whose manager left to another club in the form of Wolverhampton Wanderers, who will be heading into the new season without Nuno Espirito Santo at the helm, as both he and the club have mutually decided to part ways. The club finished 13th this season, 6 places down from their previous 2 finishers in England's top tier division. But on the upside, the UK government has listed Portugal as a green list country, meaning even more Portuguese players could possibly be walking through the door at Molineux over the summer during the transfer window. Steve Bruce's Newcastle side are up next in 12th. Say what you want about Steve Bruce, but he and his side got the job done when it mattered and when they needed it most this campaign. It seems like a bit of a ticking time bomb as far as you're concerned with Newcastle. You get the feeling that they could explode any season now and that their future may lie back in the Championship unless something changes within the club, mainly the ownership, in the very near future. But for right now, they can rest assured that another season in the top flight beckons for them in a few months' time. Aston Villa are up next in 11th in what was a vast improvement upon their last season's performance, in which they only just survived by the skin of their teeth, if you remember. A big reason for Villa's vast improvement in terms of position in the league this season goes down to their star player and talisman in Jack Grealish, along with striker Ollie Watkins, of course. Grealish played a major part and was a big factor in Villa finishing as high as what they did. But with Grealish in contention for the England squad for the upcoming European Championships, Villa will be hoping that he returns to Villa Park ready for next season and won't have his head turned by a, with all due respect, bigger club looking to sign him up as the transfer window is once again open for business. Next, we come to Everton Football Club, who won over a lot of pundits and a lot of fans this season with a lot of praise for their supposed good showing in the league, their good display in the league, particularly in the early to mid stages. Bright points to take away from this campaign for the Toffees included the goal-scoring return of their striker Dominic Calvert-Lewin with 16 goals in 33 appearances, the free transfer and the slight resurrection to form again in the early to mid stages of the season of James Rodriguez, and finally, I can't do my best rock impression, but finally beating Liverpool at Anfield after many years of trying to achieve that yet again. However, in the end, it didn't really count too much, did it? Because they didn't finish in the top six. They didn't break the top six. They finished below Liverpool still, and had the same mediocre season that they've been having for a number of years by finishing 10th. How very Everton of them. In ninth, we find Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United, their first season, their first year back in the Premier League following a lengthy absence was a fairly successful one by all accounts. They didn't change their style of play and gave a lot of the bigger teams a run for their money with their no-fear football, which made them an enjoyable team to watch, an entertaining team to watch for even neutrals, as there was barely ever a boring game occurring Leeds within it. They had to wait to the final day of the season for fans to come back into Ellen Road to see them back in England's top tier division, but they'll be hoping to see a lot more of them going forward into next season. They just better hope that they don't suffer with any kind of second season syndrome like what Sheffield United have suffered with this season. And finally, taking up 8th position is Arsenal, the classic up and down season that we've become accustomed to seeing with Arsenal in recent years. A few highs, but plenty of underwhelming and disappointing lows throughout the entirety of their campaign. This will be the first time in 25 years that Arsenal have failed to qualify for any kind of European football, and going forward you can either see that as a bit of a hindrance, maybe on their transfer plans or in terms of money income, or you can probably see it as maybe a blessing in disguise for the Gunners going forward, maybe in terms of how they navigate through the league next season, or maybe in terms of maybe getting the boot to Stan Kroenke and kicking him out of the club. But I'm sure for their supporters, talking about the ownership, maybe there could be something on the horizon that may get their fans a little bit excited in the form of a takeover by Spotify CEO Daniel Ek, a man who has received the backing of Arsenal legends like Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp and Patrick Vieira. He is seemingly very well interested in taking over the club and buying it off of Stan Kroenke. If Spotify inflate their prices rapidly over the coming weeks and months, then we may know why. And that brings us to the end of the video. These are, of course, the thoughts, comments, opinions, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this season? What do you make of all the 20 teams? Who of course, were you supporting? What do you make of your team's performances? What do you make of the teams going down? What do you make of the Premier League champions? Teams that are going to Europe? Or even the teams that may have been building towards something for future seasons? I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, down in the comment section below. I'm sure that all makes it interesting reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will soon speak to you all again soon in another video.